Nvidia had a pretty interesting day today, even though the stock price was pretty much flat. But we can see earlier this morning, the stock did take a dive. We're going to take a closer look at what happened there, maybe what are some of the bearish cases that some Nvidia investors might want to know about. We also do have some great news with Nvidia's price target from a recent analyst and some recent kind of growth on their products, on their current products, the H200. At the end, I also want to take a closer look at some financial numbers for Nvidia that I think every Nvidia investor should know about. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so like I mentioned, pretty much a flat day for Nvidia. The stock was up 0.6%, where some of its competitors, AMD, was down roughly 2.7%, and Nvidia was down roughly 0.4%. So I think later this week, I want to take a closer look at what are some of the semiconductor stocks that I wouldn't mind buying at these levels. So now with Nvidia, the first thing I want to take a closer look at is we did have an analyst from Morgan Stanley, Joseph Moore, raise his price target on Nvidia to $144 per share from $116 per share. So this is a huge growth compared to where the stock is at right now. That's at least a 10% gain from where the stock is at, a little bit, maybe a little bit more, maybe closer to 15, and they did maintain their overweight rating. Moore was specifically impressed with the huge demand or the sustained demand for Nvidia's H100 and H200 chips. And this has been kind of a bearish case or discussion for Nvidia that a lot of bears have been discussing. It's like, hey, look, Jose, Nvidia's releasing new chips so quickly that no one is going to buy their H100 and their H200 because they're going to be waiting for the Blackwell chip that's going to come out later this year and ramp production into next year. But we can see from this analyst, he believes that, hey, look, right now, based on the back data that they have, the demand for the H100 and the H200 are still very, very strong. And obviously, that's a big bullish case because maybe there are a lot of investors that were also worried about maybe some pocket of weakness on the demand. Before we go any further, we are now on the road to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you all for the crazy support. So if you haven't and are enjoying the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Finally, if you want to support the channel a little bit more, make sure to check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Now back to today's episode. Now, kind of following through with this, we did hear some reports from a European company. They're called NVDA, which is ticker NB2 in the German stock market. I really wouldn't know which would be the ticker if they are available to purchase here in the United States. But this is kind of like a cloud data center providing company. Really small though, market cap of $1.2 billion. And they did release information today on July 1st of 2024 that Northern Data Group, a leading provider of high-performance computing solutions, today announced it has purchased NVIDIA's H200 GPUs through a newly established partner with Supermicro. So obviously that's really bullish for Supermicro. Supermicro stock. Let's take a closer look at how the stock did. Stock was pretty much flat for the day, but overall we can see how Supermicro is expanding kind of their growth opportunities with other high performance clouding solution companies. What else did we hear from this? So they mentioned that Northern Data Group's cloud platform, Taiga Cloud, will be the first cloud server provider in Europe to offer access to the H200 GPU hardware with delivery and deployment scheduled for Q4 of 2024. The partnership with Supermicro for the NVIDIA H200 GPUs will further build its HPC or high-performance computing solutions and complement its existing offerings of the best-in-class Gen AI technologies. And they mentioned that, hey, they're going to buy a few islands is what they call it, but this first full island is over 2,000 NVIDIA H200 GPUs, utilizing, you guessed it, their DPUs, Bluefield 3, their NICs on the Mellanox CX7, and obviously going to be using NVIDIA's AI software solutions. So pretty interesting there. It kind of just showcases how NVIDIA's growth is not only based here in big cloud server providers, it's also small cloud server providers all over the world. And this is something that Jensen Huang has mentioned a lot, that sovereign AI, sovereign clouding solutions as well are going to be big customers of NVIDIA's GPUs, and here we can see them really buying the H200. Now, again, I don't really focus much on the European market, but maybe some of you might. And Northern Data, like we saw, market cap of 1.27 billion. If they are growing their AI market, might be something to consider. Now, kind of looking into Nvidia, unfortunately, there are some bearish things that impacted the stock today. The biggest thing, and I actually think this is the only thing, is Nvidia is reported to be hit by French antitrust complaint. So if you have been following this channel many months ago, I believe in September, we did see reports that the French regulators did do a raid on an Nvidia site in France, I believe, or somewhere in Europe. Now it seems like whatever they found something, and we're going to get some complaints here by the French antitrust unit over there. We also really did an episode on June 6th. If feel free to check out the history on June 6th, where we've kind of been hearing a lot of other governments do the same thing. On June 6th, we saw the U.S. regulators to open an antitrust probes into Nvidia. And in that episode that I did on June 6th, and in my opinion, it shows a lot of information of why, as an Nvidia investor, I really am not worried about these regulations. At the end of the day, Nvidia is, especially in the data center market, maybe in the GPU and the consumer market, it might be a different thing, but in the data center market, their products are so far ahead of the others that there's no reason for them to play this heavy hand, right? There's no one close to them, so they're pretty much just really selling their products because of the huge lead they have against competitors and everybody else. Now, the final thing I want to take a closer look at is there were reports that came out, I believe, yesterday or a few days ago, that Nvidia is going to end up, some analyst believes that Nvidia is going to do some massive buybacks because they're just such a huge cash flow machine right now, especially with all this amount of investment of cash flow the company has gotten in the past few quarters. And it's insane, right? Free cash flow in the most recent quarter was almost $15 billion. And that analyst is pretty right to say, historically, as this company has grown their free cash flow, a lot of that free cash flow has been going to stock buybacks. We can see in the most recent quarter, they bought roughly $7.8 billion of stocks buybacks. And some people might be wondering, hey, Jose, is this because Nvidia is trying to maybe offset some of the dilutions they might be doing in stock-based compensation? And if we look at stock-based compensation hasn't really grown much in the past 5 years. It's still roughly about $1 billion. And normalized, we can see, the other things have grown at a faster rate than stock-based compensation. Let's look at R&D. Even as this company continues to invest heavily, it's nowhere near the amount of free cash flow that they're building. So Nvidia right now is a free cash flow monster. And one more thing that we are going to look at is this company has grown overall their cash and short-term investments at such a rapid pace. You can see a huge growth here, roughly sitting at $31.5 billion. So it is true. I think as Nvidia continues to get huge free cash flow, we're going to see more likely stock buybacks. Now, there might be some investors that say, hey, Jose, isn't Nvidia stock pretty expensive right now? Shouldn't they be smarter with their capital? Shouldn't they save it for maybe a correction? That is true. We've seen a lot of companies be a lot more frugal with when they buy back stocks. I think Nvidia right now is just floating, making cash pretty much out of thin air, and is trying to do as much as possible. And I'm pretty sure their CFO is super smart and knows what she is doing. So overall, this is all I have for Nvidia. I think we got some pretty good news for Nvidia in forms of kind of seeing the demand for H200 still being pretty strong. I do believe we also kind of saw some great news from Supermicro with this new partnership that they had with a European company. So let me know in the comments below, guys. Are you buying Supermicro at these levels? Are you bullish? Are you buying Nvidia at these levels? I talked about it in the past. For Nvidia right now, it's not an accumulation phase. It's more of just very small dollar cost average, in my opinion. But see you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care and see you next time.